Okay, we have a major trade happening, while a bunch of other moves are going down in free agency right now. Let me break this down for you. The Denver Nuggets have traded Michael Porter Jr., along with a 2032 unprotected first-round pick. That's 7 years from now, folks, to the Brooklyn Nets in exchange for Cam Johnson. I mean, when I think about 2032, I honestly don't know what the world's going to look like, let alone what either the Nuggets or the Nets organization will look like at that time. This is fascinating timing too, because the Nuggets just signed Bruce Brown to a 1-year deal, which we'll get into later. But first, let's really dig into what this trade means for both sides. You've got MPJ, a guy who's been through a lot with injuries, going to a Nets team that's in full rebuild mode. MPJ was on an expensive contract, and while he has incredible talent and shooting ability, the Nuggets needed someone they could count on night after night, especially in high-pressure situations. Sometimes talent isn't enough. You need reliability. Meanwhile, Denver is getting Cam Johnson, a proven shooter who they re-hoping can provide more consistency than what they were getting from Porter Jr. in crucial playoff moments. They know how to get shooters open looks, they know how to move the ball, and they know how to put players in positions to succeed. Johnson is going to thrive in that environment. Of course, you take that if it happened, but that's not the expectation. What you're really asking for is consistency. I mean, they just dealt one of their significant assets. So looking ahead to next offseason, they've got a little more breathing room. Need to be able to add pieces, whether that's mid-season trades or summer signings. Having Johnson's more manageable contract instead of MPJ's max deal gives them options they did and have before. They have a player in Cam Johnson who was genuinely really good this past season, and they're not locked into that massive MPJ contract. I mean, the amount of open shots that Cam Johnson is going to get created for him off of Nikola Jokić and Jamal Murray, it's going to feel completely different than what he experienced with the Nets. Meanwhile, MPJ goes to Brooklyn, where he might have to create more for himself, which historically hasn't been his strongest skill. Sometimes the best trades are just about talent. They're about finding the right talent at the right price point that allows you to build around your core stars effectively. When you have the best passing big man in NBA history setting you up, the archetype is very similar too. Both are really good shooting wings, who can stretch the floor and provide spacing for their teams. But there are some subtle differences that I think favor Johnson for what Denver needs. In a dynamic point guard like Murray creating chaos, you're going to get looks you've never seen before. His playmaking numbers are slightly better than MPJ's though. We're not talking about huge differences here. He knows how to play off Jokic. He understands the ball movement. He knows where to be for those skip passes. Cam Johnson was playing for the Nets, which, let's just say that wasn't exactly a perfectly orchestrated offensive system. When you look at the actual advanced metrics like touches per game, dribbles per possession, and all those detailed stats, these two players are pretty much aligned. They're both primarily catch-and-shoot guys who can occasionally create their own shot. Can you just give us a reliable 16 points per game in the playoffs on good efficiency? That's it. Just be consistent. The more I think about this move, the more it makes sense for Denver's championship window. But I have a good feeling about this fit. They need reliable production, especially in the postseason, and MPJ's playoff performances have been inconsistent despite his talent. This trade feels like they're prioritizing stability over potential upside. Let's talk about Michael Porter Jr. for a minute, because this guy deserves a lot of respect for what he went through this past season. That financial flexibility may have played a significant role in Denver being able to get Bruce Brown on this 1-year deal. So maybe it didn't directly impact that signing. I'm not going to try to be the salary cap guru right now, but it certainly gives them more room to maneuver. He completely gutted out the entire playoffs with a shoulder injury that was clearly bothering him. He was still a key piece in Denver's championship run, and you have to give him credit for that. Plus, he has done tremendous work to stay on the court consistently after dealing with all those back problems earlier in his career. That back surgery was scary, and many people wondered if he'd ever be the same player. But here's the thing. Even setting aside the shoulder injury, his playoff performances have been really spotty over the years. I'm thinking back to 2 years ago when he was absolutely awesome against the Lakers in round 1. He looked like the perfect complementary star next to Jokic and Murray. But then, in round 2 against the Timberwolves, when Denver was desperate to score against that amazing Minnesota defense, he just wasn't able to do much of anything. That inconsistency has been the story of his playoff career. And that's really the crux of this trade. Now here's the big thing about bringing in Cam Johnson. You're not asking him to drop a bunch of 20-point games in the playoffs? And here's where it gets really interesting. Cam Johnson is going to take a lot of threes in this Nuggets offense. The Nets offense was, well, let's just say it wasn't exactly a well-oiled machine. But Denver's system is championship proven. So we'll see if this hope for consistency is worth giving up MPJ in a pick that's still a long time from now. Let me mention something important about the contracts here. Cam Johnson is just cheaper than MPJ right now, and for next season, until his deal expires. This flexibility matters both right now and throughout the season. If some other move could potentially open up, when you're trying to maintain a championship window, every dollar matters. Plus, if Johnson performs well and proves he can be that consistent playoff contributor they're looking for, his contract will look like tremendous value. When you really break down MPJ and Cam Johnson's numbers from this past season, they're actually pretty similar, which makes this trade even more interesting. Dad, in my head, it feels like Cam Johnson can do a little bit more off the dribble. The one massive difference, though, is familiarity with their new systems. MPJ has been playing with the Nuggets system for years, so now you have this interesting flip. Johnson has to learn the Denver system, but he's going into a much better offensive environment. Now Cam Johnson is going to fit into the ecosystem known as Nikola Jokić, and that changes everything. He's going to learn how to cut at the right times. He's going to get those beautiful skip passes for wide open threes. He's going to benefit from playing off the Marija kick. It's a man game which creates incredible shots for everybody on the floor. There's this about certain players making their teammates better. Honestly, it's not always true, depending on who we're talking about. But it's absolutely 100% true for Jokić. That man has made role players look like stars, and stars look like superstars. In Phoenix, he played in a heavy screen offense with Chris Paul and Devin Booker, which was good, but this is different. With the Nets, well, that was just whatever chaos Brooklyn was running. Can he be a primary or secondary option? Can he create his own shot consistently? Brooklyn is going to test whether he can expand his game or if he's better suited as that high-level role player he's been. Can he handle the pressure of being one of the main guys? But Denver's system is championship proven, and Jokić is the engine that makes it all work. The way he sees the floor, the way he manipulates defenses, the way he can find guys in spots they didn't even know they were open, it's truly special. Unless there was some offer out there that we do and know about, like multiple good picks. Getting a real player, even one that's expensive right now, plus a legitimate future asset seems like good business for a rebuilding team. MPJ, for all his offensive limitations, was actually pretty important defensively. He gave them size, rebounding, and could handle some of those pick-and-roll coverage responsibilities, especially with Jokić playing high on screens, since rim protection isn't exactly his strongest suit. MPJ wasn't competing for any all-defense teams, but all that stuff mattered for Denver's defensive scheme. If not, he becomes a very tradable asset, a talented player on a big contract that contending teams might want. And it felt like they just were as sharp on that end for most of the regular season under Mike Malone. We've got D'Angelo Russell heading to the Mavericks, Clint Capella going to the Rockets, Dorian Finney-Smith also to Houston, and plenty of other moves still to be made. They're prioritizing consistency and fit over raw talent, which is exactly what championship teams should do. Whether it works out remains to be seen, but I like the logic behind it. Sometimes the best trades aren't the flashiest ones. They the ones that make your team better suited for playoff success. So while they might lose some of MPJ's defensive contributions, they're hoping Johnson can be adequate, while Bruce Brown provides that perimeter defense they need. But here's the key. We've never seen him playing with Jokić. Will my channel still be here so I can talk about whatever that draft pick ends up becoming? Hopefully, but of course it could also become a trade asset down the line. We all know how these things work in the NBA. We saw him in that heavy screen offense with Chris Paul and Devin Booker in Phoenix during their playoff run. And then we saw whatever the Nets were doing this past season. It's just completely different when you play with Jokić. But once David Adelman took over and they started running more zone defense, it really started freaking out opponents. We saw how they took Oklahoma City to 7 games with that defensive adjustment. Brooklyn has cap space to absorb his deal right now, which is how they could even make this trade work in the first place. Al Johnson has never played with anyone close to Jokic's level as a playmaker. They're not trying to win now, they're trying to build for the future. And getting a young, talented player plus a future first-round pick for a good but not great shooter makes sense. Denver is built around Jokic, who will be 37 years old when that pick conveys. Murray will be in his early 30s. If Bruce Brown can get back to what he was with the Nuggets a couple years ago, if he can recapture all that energy and versatility, then you're really looking at an oddball defender who can guard multiple positions and bring that championship experience. Who knows what that team looks like 7 years from now? That pick could be worth a lot more than people think right now. D'Angelo Russell is gone. He's heading to Dallas at the time I'm recording this. Cam Thomas hasn't re-signed yet, but I assume he's coming back to Brooklyn. Other than that, you're looking at a roster full of rookies. Niecy Claxton, Dennis Schroeder, I guess, and not much else in terms of established offensive players. No, I'm genuinely excited to see how Johnson's game evolves, playing next to the best center in basketball. The open looks he's going to get, the easy baskets off cuts, the rhythm threes. It's going to be beautiful to watch. Meanwhile, MPJ goes to the Nets, and man, that's going to be a completely different challenge. Not even in the same universe. So MPJ is probably going to have to create for himself way more often than he ever had to in Denver. That's a significant adjustment for a player who's primarily been a catch-and-shoot guy throughout his career. Here's the crucial point. There is definitely no hub of offense on this Nets team that is anywhere close to what Jokic provides. Now, if he even stays on the Nets for this upcoming season, and that's a big if, given that Brooklyn seems to be in full tank mode, he's going to have to show he can be more than just a complimentary piece. These are all questions that MPJ has and really had to answer. In Denver, because he had Jokic and Murray handling most of the offensive creation. From Brooklyn's perspective, getting MPJ and an unprotected first-round pick for Cam Johnson feels pretty solid to me. And here's the thing, that 2032 pick could end up being really valuable. Plus, MPJ gives them flexibility. If he plays well and shows he can be a focal point of an offense, maybe they keep him as part of their young core. The Nets are clearly in asset accumulation mode, and this trade fits perfectly with that strategy. Let's talk about the defensive side of this trade, especially considering Denver just brought back Bruce Brown. Cam Johnson is going to end up being more of a help defender for Denver. Now, it's worth noting that Denver's defense did crumble once they lost some key defenders. Aaron Gordon is still going to handle a lot of the heavy lifting on defense. That man just does whatever Denver needs from him on both ends. If we want to go back and look at Cam Johnson's previous playoff runs, you're looking at a lot of 12, 13 points per game type performances. As for that 2032 pick, man, I'm going to be 39 years old when that thing conveys. Looking at the bigger picture of free agency, this MPJ Cam Johnson trade is just one piece of a busy summer. But for Denver, this feels like a move that makes sense for their championship window.